signs in the sun, moon, and stars. We're back with the war in heaven, Revelation 12, 7 through 9, December 21st, 2020, Satan thrown out of heaven. Let's dig deeper into the week before this sign, starting with Hanukkah, the beginning of Hanukkah. Let's explore these signs in detail in the heavens using stellarium. Here we are. Let's see if I can get a better focus. Okay. We're here, December the 12th, 2020, Jerusalem time. And it's 12:12 p.m. And what we see here is the moon and Venus aligning in the constellation of Libra. This happens on day 1 of Hanukkah on the Jewish calendar. And I believe that we are witnessing a sign in the heavens showing us that there are fulfillments about to take place. So let's dig deeper into what we're seeing here in these signs. The first thing is, in ancient times, Libra was seen as the altar in heaven. It was not always pictured as scales. It can be seen as the scales of judgment. But in ancient times, as I said, it was pictured as the altar. And this has great significance when we see the moon aligning with Venus in the altar. And as far as a MAZZAROTH sign, this would have great significance for the body of Messiah. And let me explain. If Libra is the altar, and we consider marriage, and the moon is considered the bride, and Venus, being the bright and morning star, is considered Messiah or Christ, then what we are seeing here is the bride and the bridegroom pictured at the altar. And if we look at the other associated signs, then what we see is a couple other things. We have here the sun. And the sun is lined up in the constellation of Ophiuchus inside of the Huppah. And we can see that the sun is now aligning with the leg artwork of Ophiuchus. and Mercury, the messenger, is in the middle of the huppah or the tent, as if to be a witness of what is taking place at the altar. And we can see that these three constellations are tied. And we always see that as the planets or the moon or the sun come into the claw of the crab, it's like a harvest. The crab's claw has always been looked at as a harvest, like a harvest tool, like a great reaping tool. And it sits at the edge. If you look at the artwork of the scales of Libra, they are here as scales, and Libra in ancient times was connected to Scorpio, and the scorpion's claws were actually up in to Libra scales. And it shows that the enemy, the scorpion, the dragon, is trying to get into the temple. And if you look at Ophiuchus as the Messiah, and it is wrestling the serpent, and it is standing on Scorpius in order to hold Scorpius back from the temple. And it is also holding the serpent back from the crown, which is Corona Borealis. And this sign, in conjunction, tells a story. And this story is that of our King, Messiah, who is standing or holding back the enemy and standing on top of the serpent or the dragon. We all know that the enemy is Satan, and he is trying to get into the temple, and he believes that he can rule all of heaven. And what we're looking at is the signs given to us of the victory. The victory that we have in Messiah, as Messiah has already won the battle with his death, his crucifixion, and the resurrection. And now we are looking for the final pieces of the puzzle for the escape and the return. And when I saw this on 12/12 at 12/12, it was very powerful for me, being a watchman and always looking at these MAZZAROTH signs in order for us to determine our days. And we know that on the Jewish calendar, the evening of, let's go back to the 11th, and we'll go to what would be their sunset. And we're just going to call that we'll go 1 hour ahead, and we'll say that it's 7 p.m. And what we're going to look for is the beginning of Hanukkah based on the Jewish calendar and the Jews' way of tracking time, which I believe is Babylonian. But let's look at what we're seeing in the heavens that are associated with these signs. So what we're seeing now is the moon is on the line of the constellation of Libra artwork that points the stars. If we click into the constellation artwork, then you'll see the borders are further out. But the moon is entering into the actual star configuration. And we see Venus is about positioned into the scales. And if we run this forward, excuse me, I'm going to get lined up on the moon. And we're going to go ahead and run this forward. And then we can see as the day progresses, then we come into that alignment. And here we are looking at the alignment of the moon and Venus. And if we keep traveling through, we see how the moon makes its transition into the crab's claws, and then it enters into the Huppah, which is this section. In this artwork, you can see this little, looks like a little mini tent. Well, if you consider the legs of Ophiuchus, and then we come here and we draw a line down to the crab's claw, then we can see this is the leg of Ophiuchus. This section in here is considered the Huppah, the protected place. And as the planets and the sun come through this area, this is like a house or a giant mansion in the heavens, or the Father's house, we could say. Because what happens with the moon and the sun and the line of the house, or the entrance and exit of the Huppah, is very wonderful to see in the heavens. So let's explore and continue moving through, and we're going to see the moon has now entered into the Huppah and is now coming into conjunction with Mercury. And we can see this conjunction of Mercury where, let's get this time down, where the moon fully covers, this is from the stellarium point of view, the moon fully covers Mercury, the messenger. And this is another great sign in the heavens, because we just saw the alignment of the moon and Venus, And now we're seeing the alignment of the moon and Mercury in the Hupa. And Mercury has always been the messenger. And to me, this is a sign to the body of Messiah of what is about to happen. This is like the trumpet blast that the bride has arrived. And the bride is, in ancient Israelite customs, the bride is always brought to the bridegroom. And the son, we know, is the bridegroom. And so what we're looking at is the moon making its final approach to the sun, and it comes into the line. And if you look at how far out the sun is over the line, and you make the moon the same amount of distance, you come up with December the 14th at 10:10, which is mid-Hanukkah. The sun and the moon are on the edge of the Hupa with Mercury, the messenger, right there, as if to witness the bride and the bridegroom coming out of the temple or the Hupa. In many cultures, the people would all wait outside of the tent. And when the bride and the bridegroom had consummated the marriage and they came out, there was great joy and great shouting and great laughter, and there was a celebration. And to me, this day where we have a full, total solar eclipse over South America, and we see here in Stellarium the alignment it's just very powerful. And to me, this is our week of the wedding. And if we scroll back and we continue on the journey, we see that Jupiter and Saturn are coming into their close approach. And if you look at the way that Jupiter transitions into Capricorn, it's another sign. And these signs are undeniable because anybody can pull this up. And you can look at this for yourself. So here we are on December the 18th. And we're going to go ahead and go to the 0 hour real quick. Stick with me here. Forgive me for having to do this, but it's a lot easier for us to get to this 0 hour. And we can track the days from there. Okay. So what we're looking at here is Jupiter on the 18th is still in Sagittarius. And Hanukkah, the last day of Hanukkah is the 18th. So what we're looking at is this period of Hanukkah. The king, Jupiter, is not worried about the battle because he's in a celebration. And if we look at the transition, on the 19th, Jupiter enters into Capricorn. And I believe that what we are seeing here is the beginning of the 3-day war in heaven. We'll be back with another video explaining this section of the Great War in Heaven, the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter. It hasn't happened this close in over 300 years. Signs in the sun, moon, and stars.